Pokemon Platinum is a game with a pretty awesome selection of normal types, perhaps one of the most neglected types by players. So today, I aim to find out if I can beat a Pokemon Platinum Hardcore Nuzlocke using only normal types. And the rules I'll be using for this challenge are first off the standard Nuzlocke rules where fainted Pokemon must be permanently boxed, only your first encounter in any given area can be caught, and all Pokemon must be given nicknames. Next up, we've got the Hardcore editions where battle mode must be played on set, and no items can be used in battle except for held items, and you can't overlevel the next gym leader's highest level Pokemon. And the following are the Pokemon I have access to. There are a few more in the game like Eevee, but it's not notable since it evolves into non-normal types. Additionally, Snorlax is so rare in the game that we might as well consider it unavailable. Anyway, I start off my journey the way I always do by naming myself Axel, and it's time to pick our first Pokemon. Now obviously none of our choices are normal types, but picking Turtwig, our rival gets Chimchar, which turns into a fighting type, so at least he's got the upper hand. And after just a few tackles, we finish the only trainer battle we're gonna have to fight without a normal type. Nice. And before Dawn even gives us our first Pokeballs, Professor Rowan interrupts us and gives us TM27 for return, which is going to be very useful later on. And it's at this point we can catch our very first encounter, everyone's favorite Pokemon, Bidoof. Now I was contemplating what naming convention I was going to use this time, and I decided to just go with the most common names in the United States over the past 100 years. So say hello to James, who has a quiet nature, which means he's got plus special attack and minus speed. It also has the simple ability, which is really awesome since it doubles any stat alterations to Bidoof. Next up, we find our next encounter, a Starly on Route 202. I capture her and name her Mary, and she turns out to also have a quiet nature, which is about the worst nature you can have on Starly. Next, we get to the big city, where we find this weird guy from the International Police who calls himself Looker. Like, what kind of person calls themselves a looker? Seems kind of vain to me. I then go visit this house so I can pick up the Quick Claw, which is a pretty awesome early game item. And upon leaving Jubilife City, we run into Barry, who wants to have a Pokemon battle. And this is where I introduce the strategy that Bidoof's going to be using as long as he's on the team. See, anytime we use Defense Curl, instead of just getting one stage of defense, we actually get +2. However, while we were setting up, Starly just kept using Growl, so we're not doing that much damage. And as soon as Starly starts attacking, it gets a crit pretty much right away, which bypasses all our boosts. And even though we still have enough health to take down Starly, as Barry sends out Chimchar, it doesn't look good for Bidoof. And so I decide to switch out into Starly and go for a couple wing attacks, and luckily for me, fortune swings over to my side on my second wing attack, and I get a crit and take him out. Later when we get to Orberg Gate, this hiker gives us the HM for Rock Smash, which we can actually teach to Bidoof. I then go find Rourke in the mines, and ironically he shows me exactly what I'm going to be doing to his Pokemon very soon. And while grinding to the level cap outside of Orberg City, Starly actually evolves at level 14, and we not only get Staravia, but the Intimidate ability to boot. And that's going to be very good to have this early game. It's then time for us to take on our first gym challenge and battle Rourke. And since Staravia is a flying type, she's not really going to be doing that much this battle, and we're going to have to leave it up to James. And my strategy is very simple. Geodude can't touch me that much as long as I set up enough defense curls to get to +6. I then start spamming Rock Smashes, and eventually the Geodude goes down. James levels up to 15, which is fine since you only have to start the battle at the level cap. And Rourke's next Pokemon is Onyx, which I'm a bit afraid of since it has Screech, and I really don't want to have my defense lowered against Cranidos. However, luckily it never goes for it, and I take it down in 2 Rock Smashes, and then Cranidos comes in and just goes down to a few rollouts. And since James leveled up to 15 during the battle, it means it's going to evolve into B-Barrel afterwards, which is a pretty awesome upgrade for the team. It's then time for one of the most infamous run killers in Pokemon Platinum, and time to face off against Mars. She starts out the battle by sending in Zubat, and I go for James, of course, who sets up a defense curl as she hits me with Toxic, which I heal off with a Pecha Berry. I then decide to go for Rollout since it gets powered up by defense curl and super effective, but luckily I hit the second one and knock it out in one hit. But as soon as Purugly comes in, unfortunately it breaks my rollout streak by using Fake Out. However, since we're sitting at +2 defense, I decide to just go for another one, and after a couple of hits, we take out Purugly, and that is one of the scarier battles behind us. And I gotta say, I'm not looking forward to Saturn. And so after saving the Valley Windworks, we get access to a few honey trees, so I decide to slather them with honey and go out into the real world and spend 6 hours doing something else. And after going to the gym and hanging with some friends, I decided to come back and see how my trees were doing, and I actually ran into Apom, my first encounter, which is one we need. And so I capture her and name her Jennifer. Jen's got a hardy nature, which is neutral, and the pickup ability, which means we're gonna get a bunch of sweet items. Before going to bed though, I check the other 2 trees, and the next one happens to be a Cherubi. I also check the one in the meadows, and it's a Combee, and not only that, it's a male Combee. Since I couldn't play until the next evening anyway, I check again, and another male Combee. What about the tree over at the... oh, another male Combi. Nice. Now at this point, I only had one more tree to check, and I was just gonna keep playing anyway. And as I approached the tree, the near impossible happened, and I actually ran into Munchlax. Now there is one issue with this, and that's that this is actually the same tree where I got Apom, so technically I shouldn't be able to get this encounter. However, since it's so rare to get Munchlax, and I actually managed to run into it, I figured for you guys, I was gonna catch this one and use it since we have very limited encounters anyway. And not only do we get John the Munchlax, it actually holds the leftovers, which is such an awesome item to have at this point in the game. And it's got a docile nature, so neutral just like Apom, and pickup just like Apom as well. And as we approach the end of Eterna Forest, Cheryl gives us the Soothe Bell, which is going to be awesome since Munchlax is a friendship-based evolution. And as soon as Cheryl leaves, we actually run into our next encounter, Baniri, which is also a friendship evolution. I catch him and name him Thomas. Tommy ends up having a quirky nature, which is neutral as well. And after we leave Eterna Forest, we can actually get our next encounter right away and catch a Hoot Hoot. I capture him and name him Michael and put him in the box for now. We can then go to Mount Coronet and get yet another friendship evolution in Cleffa. I catch her and name her Elizabeth. It's then time to face Gardenia, but since we've got Mary, this really isn't going to be difficult at all. It goes pretty much exactly the way you think it would, and I just spam Wing Attack. First off, Turtwig gets 2-shot, then Charon comes in, and it too gets 2-shot by Wing Attack. Her final Pokemon's then Roserade, and as you would expect, it gets 2-shot by Wing Attack. 2 badges down, 6 to go. It's then pretty much time to take on Jupiter, but first, I go and find the TM for Thief. And before taking her on, I go and grab the upgrade right next to her. Now the battle with Jupiter is just as much an infamous run killer as the one with Mars, but luckily we've got Apom. Apom has Tickle, which lowers both the opponent's attack and defense. This means I can make sure that Zubat really doesn't do that much damage to me, and I ensure that I can get a 2-hit KO with Thief. But Zubat really isn't what anyone's afraid of in this battle. Next, she sends in her infamous Skuntank. The first turn she goes for Smokescreen, which really doesn't matter since I can't miss Tickle anyway, but the thing I'm afraid of is if Night Slash gets a crit. Luckily her first couple Night Slashes don't get any crits, and so I decide to switch out into Mary, who gets off an Intimidate to lower its attack further. Fortunately, she doesn't go for another Night Slash, so I don't risk to get crit, but I do get poisoned from Poison Gas. I then get hit by a Night Slash that doesn't crit, and my Wing Attack doesn't quite take it out, but luckily I can just hit it with a priority Quick Attack and win the battle. I'm glad that one's over. Then as I go to collect my bike, I get interrupted by Cynthia, who gives me an egg, which is actually our next encounter. After that, I can finally go grab my bicycle, and after riding it for a ton of time, my egg finally hatches into a Togepi. This means that I'm currently sitting on 4 happiness-based evolutions on my team. Listen, I know Freddie Mercury wants to ride his bike that much, but I seriously don't. Anyway, I named Togepi William, and it ends up having Serene Grace, which is awesome. And that's when I decided I was gonna evolve all my friendship evolutions right now, which unfortunately involved me riding over 50,000 steps on my bike. But all that exercise certainly wasn't in vain, since all I have to do is level up 1 level and Togepi evolves into a Togetic. The next fight I get John up to level 17, which means he evolves into Snorlax, which is such an upgrade to the team, and not only that, he learns Belly Drum at level 17. This is certainly going to enable some pretty fun and risky strats later on in the run. Next up, it's Tommy's turn to level up and evolve into Lopunny, which is kind of unfortunate that I evolved at level 14 since it would have learned Return 1 level earlier. However, as you might remember, Professor Rowan actually gave us the TM for Return, so I teach it to Lopunny so it actually has a move that's good. And while I was at it, I figured I might as well evolve Cleffa into Clefairy, and with that we've evolved all our friendship evolutions that we currently have. Moving on, we find the TM for Earthquake on our way to Hearthome City, and while taking Lizzie for a walk, we also find Secret Power, so that's 2 moves that we can teach to Snorlax. I then go visit the contest hall where my mom tries to teach me everything about contests, like, Mom, I already know everything, I'm Miss Unova. Oh, we must have a Pokemon battle to decide who is more fabulous. So I decide to take on Fantina to see if I can gain the title of Miss Sinnoh as well. And to win this battle, I was ready to use a pretty risky strategy involving Belly Drum right off the bat, as I was expecting a Will-O-Wisp. However, Duskull actually throws and goes for Future Sight, so I can just take it out with a Lick the next turn. I'm now in a pretty good position to take on the rest of her team at +6, but she sends in Haunter, which has Confuse Ray, which really isn't good since we're at +6. Luckily, I managed to get off an Amnesia though, so Future Sight doesn't do anything at all. However, the next turn, I hit myself really hard in Confusion, and after Lefty's damage, I think I can take another one, so I go for Lick as I get put to sleep. This is actually pretty ideal since I'm confused now, and I want to heal up a bit using Leftovers so that I can take another hit from myself. And after sitting through a few more turns of sleep, I get put to sleep once again, and after finally waking up, Haunter misses an hypnosis and I can take it out with a lick. This actually puts me in a really good position to face off against Mismagius, since all those sleep turns let me heal up a lot with leftovers. However, unfortunately, Mismagius has Confuse Ray as well, and I get confused and hurt myself the first thing I do. I decide to go for Lick again, and after eating a Psybeam with my epic special defense, I hit a Lick and take it down into the yellow. The next turn I risk another Confuse Ray, but she throws by going for Psybeam, and I get my third gym badge lickety-split. And after Mismagius goes down, Michael actually gets to level 20, which means it evolves into Noctowl after the gym fight. This is pretty awesome timing since we've got a fighting gym coming up against our normal types. But before we can move on, we actually have to face Barry, which is a bit scary since he has Monferno now. And pretty much the only strategy I can use is to switch in William and go for Charm a couple times to lower its attack enough to where I can take a Flame Wheel or Mach Punch. I'm then pretty much free to go into John, who should be able to take a hit and then retaliate with an Earthquake. Outside of that, Barry's team was pretty much a breeze, and we can move on to Route 209, where we find our next encounter, a Chansey. I capture and name her Barbara, but she's not the only encounter we can get. In fact, in Veilstone City, this guy gives us a Porygon. I obviously name it Paul, since the name Porygon comes from the word polygon. Paul's got a lonely nature and the awesome ability Download. I then go ahead and go shopping for some of the strongest elemental moves in the game, and while grinding, I let Paul hold the upgrade so that he evolves into Porygon 2, which is only possible because of the Universal Pokemon Randomizer, allowing for impossible evolutions in single player. It's then time to face the Fighting-type gym leader Maylene, who could give us some trouble, but luckily we've got Michael, who can take out both Meta-type and Machoke with one single Air Slash. Then she sends in her real threat Lucario, which paralyzes me with a Force Palm, but I put it to sleep with Hypnosis. I can then freely switch into William, who can go for 3 charms in a row so that Lucario is at -6 attack. And so at this point, I'm pretty much entirely safe. As long as Maylene doesn't get a crit, I can switch into John, who can eat a couple Drain Punches, and after going for Earthquake a couple of times, that's the 4th badge in the bag. I honestly thought this was going to give us a lot more trouble than it did. Then on my way down to Pastoria City, I run into a Girafarig, which I catch and name Sarah. I also absolutely destroy some fishermen's careers by having Thunder on Porygon 2. I also realize I have access to Lickitung on Route 215, so I go back, catch one, and name him Charles. And before we can go challenge the Pastoria Gym, we have to have another battle with Barry. And even though he starts out with Staravia and goes for Double Team right away, I manage to hit a Thunder and get rid of it in one hit. I then go ahead and switch into William as he goes into Monferno, and I miss the fact that he goes for a Leer on the switch. And the next turn he gets a crit Flame Wheel, which I live on 2 HP, and fire off a Charm. I then obviously have to switch, so I go into Michael, who can tank a few hits, and take him out with a couple of Air Slashes. You know, this time Barry was kinda scary. After the fight, I decided to do some grinding outside Pastoria, and I run into my next encounter, Chatot. I didn't actually know you could get this thing before you had Rock Climb, but I catch it and name it Joe. While grinding, Mary gets up to level 34, which means she evolves into Staraptor and gets close combat, which is awesome. It's then time to take on the heavyweight champion Wake, and I have a foolproof strategy for his Gyarados, and I'm gonna go for Thunder. Did I say foolproof? Because I missed both of my Thunders, and I actually have to switch out into William. I go for a Charm, but I get taken down to a bit too low health, so I switch out into Michael. Now, fortunately, Michael has what it takes with Hypnosis and Air Slash to take out the Gyarados without too much trouble, but sometimes in Nuzlocke, your plans just don't work out since you miss or get crit or something, and this time I'm glad it just worked out. However, Floatzel hits me down to 4 HP with an Aqua Jet as soon as it comes out, and I miss a Hypnosis. That's a lot of close calls in one battle. Luckily though, he can't really do anything to John, so I switch him in, and after using Body Slam a few turns and Wake healing up to full using Hyper Potions, I finally take him down. Wake's last Pokemon is Quagsire, which is really more annoying than anything else. We trade status for a while, but in the end, he gets me down to so low HP that I have to switch into Lopunny and finish it off with a Quick Attack. Way more annoying battle than it should have been. After the fight, I talked to Wake and Barry, who seem to think there's something sus going on in the Safari Zone. Oh my Arceus, I just took a great dump in the Great Marsh. Talk about setting off a galactic bomb, am I right? Oh, the indecency! As a gym leader, I demand this man be arrested at once. Sir, you've been sent us to community service for public indecency. Only if you catch me. And I did catch him, even though he said, quote, I could run all day, I feel like I lost half my weight. I then go back to Route 214 and tell the Psyducks about my bad poop jokes, and not surprisingly, they run away. Then as I reach Cynthia's grandma in Celestic Town, I run into Cyrus, and we have a battle which ends up being pretty easy, but I fear what's to come. But now that I finally have access to Surf, I can go grab the TM for Thunderbolt. No more missing Thunders in my house. Then close by, I can go to the Fuego Ironworks and grab the TM for Flamethrower. Then in Canalave City, we have to fight Barry once again. And even though we have Staraptor, it's a really close call where we live on red HP and can take down Infernape with a fly. I'm glad there's only one more of these fights in the game. Finally, I can experience my love for boats and Sinnoh as well and go to Iron Islands. Here I find the Shiny Stone, and at this point, William is going to get super powered and turn into a Togekiss. And since we've got Serene Grace, this thing is an absolute monster with Air Slash. But not only that, we can teach it the Flamethrower TM and Aura Sphere from the Mover Learner, so we've got a very diverse and good moveset. And before taking on Byron, I decided to get Togekiss the Fist Plate. And I don't even know what to call this battle. A bloodbath? A massacre? Who knows? Togekiss just takes out all of Byron's Pokemon in one hit with Fist Plate boosted Aura Spheres. Easy clap, boys. It's then time for us to advance in the Team Galactic plot, and well, Saturn gets absolutely destroyed by Willy. Johnny takes care of Mars, and then it's time to make our way through the snow to Snow Point City. It's then time for us to take on the gym leader Candace and her ice types, and this was a huge problem for me in the ground type run, but this time we've come prepared. Sneasel hits us with a very weak ice shard, and we retaliate with a 4 times effective Aura Sphere to take it out. Her next Pokemon is a Abomasnow, which gets the same 4 times effective treatment, this time with Flamethrower. I don't have anything 4 times effective against Piloswine, but since it has bad special defense, Aura Sphere does the trick anyway. This is when she sends in her ace Pokemon Frostlass, and I decide to go into John with his massive special defense, but she gets a crit with Blizzard right off the bat. At this point, I know I can't live another critical hit, but I can't exactly switch anybody into a Blizzard either. And she starts using Double Team, and you guys know how much I hate evasion strats with a burning passion. I continue to miss crunches, and finally she hits me the Blizzard that takes me down to about a quarter health, and I actually hit with a crunch. But at this point, I know I can't live another Blizzard, which is 100% accurate in Hail, so I send in Porygon 2 thinking I can take a few hits. However, I ironically end up missing Thunderbolt and go down to red HP after Hail. So at this point, I definitely have to switch out again, and I knew in my heart that I had to bring someone back for this battle just to be able to win. And even though Jimmy takes a ton of damage from both Blizzard and Psychic, I managed to set up +4 special defense with Amnesia, which means that I can go for Yawn the next turn. But even James gets down to really low HP, and I have to switch out again on the turn that Frostlass is going to go to sleep. But since it's using Psychic, I know it doesn't have any Blizzards left, so I switch into William, and I'm just going to have to hope and pray that Flamethrower hits its target. Luckily for me though, Willy hits the second one, and we get the 7th gym badge. And now they have access to Rock Climb, we can finally go and get Ice Beam for Paul. And speaking of upgrades for Paul, we can also find the Dubious Disc while we're going through the Galactic headquarters. This means that after the next battle, Paul ends up evolving into Porygon Z, and an awesome additional powerhouse for the team. And while going through Team Galactic's headquarters, I meet up with Looker for a big rally.
One of you here today is trying to ruin the reputation of my great organization by dropping a fat one. So I've decided I'm going to destroy the whole universe. Thank you.
Cyrus, please, do you have to do this?
Meet me at Spear Pillar and we'll talk.
And so after defeating Saturn and freeing the Red Chain, that's exactly what I do.
I will not stand to be disrespected in such a way. Tell me, Dialga Palkia, what should I do? I've lost every sense of my dignity.
Yeah, bro, you just gotta go with the flow, man. Time heals all wounds.
Yeah, you know how it is, dog. You just gotta give yourself some space. Unfortunately for Cyrus, though, his plan to destroy the universe gets cut short by Giratina pulling him to the Distortion World. And honestly, I don't think anybody likes going through the Distortion World in this game. It's just so tedious, but at least it's got this cool waterfall part. But it's finally time for us to take on one of the most difficult fights in this game. And since he leads off with Houndoom, I decide to lead with Mary, who has close combat. However, he burns me with Will-O-Wisp, so I don't take him out, and the next turn he goes for a Dark Pulse, which I didn't think would do that much damage. And so after taking him out with close combat, unfortunately the burn means that Mary goes down and we get our first death. You served us well, soldier. Next up is Weavile, and I figure since Togekiss is really tanky, we can take it out, but we actually barely live in Ice Punch and retaliate with an Aura Sphere. His next Pokemon is Gyarados, and luckily we have a really good answer for this in Porygon Z. Now, unfortunately, we don't get the special attack boost from download since Gyarados has pretty good special defense, but at least we can one-shot it with a Thunderbolt. Cyrus's next Pokemon is Honchkrow, and I was unsure if I was going to be able to take this thing out, so I made sure to give Paul the Never Melt Ice before the battle so I can one-shot with Ice Beam. But we're not quite out of the woods yet because Cyrus has Crobat and it goes for a Cross Poison, which luckily doesn't crit, although he gets the poison and I can take him out with the boosted Ice Beam. Honestly, that battle always scares me a lot, and we're fortunate to have walked out with only one death. death. Our next obstacle, however, is going to be Giratina, but once again, we can just send in Paul, who's unaffected by Shadow Force, and go for a couple of Ice Beams. Funny enough, Giratina actually gets the Omni Boost from Ancient Power, but it's not enough to stop Paul. Oh yeah, and I've actually never noticed the symbolism between Mesprit, Uxie, and Azelf and the 3 characters you see on screen. Cyrus is blue just like Azelf, the willpower Pokemon, which matches up well with his insane determination. Cynthia's yellow just like Uxie, which is the knowledge Pokemon, and being the champion and all, I think that's pretty fitting. And then there's Mesprit, which is the only Pokemon to actually make a connection with the player during the story, so it makes sense that we share its pinkish color and that it's the emotion Pokemon. Onwards towards Sunny Shore City, and I run into this guy who has 6 Pikachus he wants to take on the league with. Like, does he not know that Cynthia has a Garchomp? I then start fighting the gym trainers, and at level 32, Jennifer ends up learning Double Hit. This means that she evolves after the battle into Ambipom, which I decide to grind up a little bit before the gym battle. It's then finally time to take on the 8th gym and Volkner with his electric types. And I devised what I think is a pretty good strategy. And my strategy involves sending out Ambipom first and going for a couple of agilities. Jolteon just wastes his time going for charge beams and paralyzing me with Thunder Wave. After I have +4 speed, Jolteon hits me with a pretty powerful charge beam, but I can safely baton pass into Snorlax. Now Snorlax is pretty much completely safe against Jolteon, so I set up a belly drum as he paralyzes me, which I heal off with my Cherry Berry. From this point on, I outspeed every single one of Volkner's Pokemon and take them out with +6 Earthquakes. Feels good, man. So that's all the badges down, and we can finally move on towards Victory Road and head to the Pokemon League for our final challenge. And as soon as we get to the Pokemon League, we have another run-in with Barry, but since he's so much lower than the level cap at this point, we beat him easily. It's now finally time. I decide the 6 Pokemon I'm gonna bring into the Pokemon League, and our first challenger is Aaron and his Bug-type Pokemon. He starts out by sending in Yanmega, but since the level cap is 10 levels higher, we can just one-shot with an Air Slash from William. Next up is Drapeon, and since it's a little bit scary with its Ice Fang, I decide to go for a Charm just to lower its attack by a little bit. This way I don't take that much damage, and the combination of Aura Sphere and Air Slash ends up taking out Drapeon. Next up is Vespa Quinn, which is pretty bulky, so it actually ends up living and retaliates with a Power Gem that gets me down pretty low, but after Aaron heals up, I can just take it down with another couple Air Slashes. Now Aaron has 2 more Pokemon on his team, and one of them is Heracross, which is 4 times weak to Air Slash, and the other one happens to be Scizor. And as you know, Scizor is 4 times weak to Flamethrower, so we pretty much clean up easy at this point. So that's the first Elite Four member down, and we move on to Bertha and her ground types. Now look, I know the first Pokemon we ever caught was James, and that people sleep on B-Barrel, but it's actually a really good Pokemon, and I'm gonna show you why. I decide to spend the first turn setting up Amnesias and Curses to raise my special defense, and attack, which I get double boosts from because of Simple. It's then time for me to unleash James' full power, and I hit the Whiscash with a Waterfall and it goes down in 1 hit. And after eating an Earthquake at +6 defense, Gliscor suffers the same fate. Next is Golem, which is 4 times weak to water, so after setting up a Sandstorm, it too falls. Not even the combined power of Rhyperior and Hippowdon can stand up to the strength of B-Barrel, and I hope I at least prove to you that B-Barrel can do some work. Now that James got his time in the spotlight, it's time to face the fiery trainer Flint. Flint starts out with Houndoom, but this time we take it out in a single hit with Aura Sphere. He then sends in Infernape, and we luckily live a critical hit Flare Blitz and take him out with a single Air Slash. There's been a lot of close calls to the Chimchar line this run, and I'm glad it at least didn't claim any casualties. Flint's next Pokemon is Mag Mortar, so I decide to switch out of William, who's really low, and go into John, who can hit him with an Earthquake after he charges up a Solar Beam. I use the 2 rare candies I found during my journey on John after entering the Elite Four to get him up to 61, so he had enough power to knock out Flint's last 3 remaining Pokemon. And so that means that we've defeated 3 out of 4 Elite Four members, and it's time to face Lucian and his Psychic types. Now Lucian can honestly be a run killer in this game. Psychic types have always been a tricky type to deal with, but luckily I had a really good strategy planned with Jennifer. After using Agility to get to +6 speed, I Baton Pass out into John. John can tank anything that this Mr. Mime can do, so I can freely set up a Belly Drum to get to +6 attack. And so at this point, I'm a +6 speed and +6 attack Snorlax, and I take out Mr. Mime in 1 hit. Next is Gallade, who goes down to a single Body Slam, and finally he has Alakazam, Espeon, and Bronzong, who all go down to a single Crunch. Honestly, I totally understand why they banned Baton Pass in the competitive scene back in the day. It's just so good. But since we beat the Elite Four, it's time to face the final challenge, the battle that decides the run. Bring it on, Cynthia. Cynthia always starts the battle with Spiritomb, so I decide to send in Ambipom first. After seeing the damage on Dark Pulse, I know I can live a non-crit, so I decide to set up a Nasty Plot as well. This means I can Baton Pass +2 speed and +2 special attack over to Porygon Z, and as soon as it comes out, I also get a special attack boost because of download. Now, even though I'm at +3 special attack, Spiritomb actually lives on red HP, and Cynthia heals up to full. After she's healed up, I go for another Ice Beam, and of course it lives, so I take it out with a Charge Beam, which means I get the +4 special attack. And with +4 special attack and double my speed, I'm pretty confident that I can take on the world. Her next Pokemon is Lucario, and it goes down to a single Thunderbolt. Her next Pokemon is Togekiss, which also just goes down to a +4 Thunderbolt. Then we've got the infamous Garchomp. Will it defeat me this time? Not a chance. We go for a Nevermelt Ice boosted +4 Ice Beam and cleanly knock out the Garchomp. Next is my Milotic, and of course it goes down to a Thunderbolt, and honestly, this just shows how good a combination Ice Beam and Thunderbolt are. They just cover so much ground. And after taking down Roserade with Ice Beam, we defeat Cynthia, and with that, the Pokemon Platinum Hardcore Nuzlocke using only normal types. Now, what did we learn this challenge? Well, that Baton Pass is super overpowered. But you know what? We also learned that B-Barrel can be a force to be reckoned with, and that's, I think, the important lesson. Now, if you enjoy Pokemon Challenge videos like this, that's what I do on the channel, so make sure you subscribe so you get notified every time a new one comes out. And you know what? If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave me a like down below, and if you want to see these runs live, go ahead and follow me at AntlerBoy Live over on Twitch. And if you'd like, you can check out my friend Dyztrofy's very first Hardcore Nuzlocke he ever tried in the description down below. But guys, that's gonna do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and until we see each other next time, have a good one.